Hi, Tim.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? Can you call me when you're done?
Can I call you?
Yeah. No. Oh, we the only two on that I could talk to you for a moment.
Yeah, there's nobody here yet.
Oh, okay. How you doing, honey? I
Doing
tried to
okay.
call. What?
Doing okay.
Oh, you don't sound it. You don't sound happy.
No, I just had a busy morning.
Well, that's why you get paid the very, very big bucks.
The
What
big
is
buck.
it? 10 cents an hour?
I think it's actually up to 12 now.
I knew it. I thought it was. I knew it was be at least 12. So Tim, are we okay?
Yeah.
They're probably going to ask me to sing for who knows, maybe not for
Oh,
the
to do
first,
High Holiday Opera.
yeah, first day of the high holidays,
Yeah.
like Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will. I mean, it's up to you guys.
I haven't heard. They are working at, the rabbi and Charles and Leslie, and they're all working on that. And they will give me a list when it's finished, but I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay, good. So I won't be so if they pick me, I got plenty of time to have my hair done.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you, honey. I'm excited for today. I haven't been on a call in a while. Well, I wasn't feeling well last week or whenever it was. I couldn't do that. But I never try to miss yours. I always miss the rabbis.
Yeah. Well, it's if you're not feeling well, you're not feeling well. You got to take care of yourself. But
I know.
it's very interesting because Caleb is doing the vaccine study for COVID-19.
Say it again.
He's in the study to do the vaccine for the COVID-19.
Oh my God. He's doing it?
Yeah, he had his first appointment today.
So he hasn't had any shots yet.
They gave him a shot today. Yeah.
They're giving, and how's he feeling?
He's fine, and he's got like things he has to do, take his temperature every day. But they're paying you for this, to do this.
Really? A
Yeah.
lot?
Well, I mean, like today, it was 2.5 hours, $100.
I think I should sign up.
Exactly.
No,
No, because
Nah.
they're grateful because they need this. They need the study done so they can figure this whole stupid thing out.
I know. I'm so grateful. Forget the $100. I'm grateful that he's doing it. Is that every time he goes in?
Every time he goes in, anytime he even talks to them on the phone.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he must have been a good candidate.
Yeah, because he works in a grocery store. So, he's around people.
He's perfect.
Yep. Yeah, he got picked right away.
Wish him a lot of love for me.
No, I'm just glad he's doing it because we need people to do it. Otherwise, we're never going to figure it out,
Absolutely. Wish him a lot of love and a lot of hugs for me.
I will.
Thanks. Who
You will.
else came on? Anybody else come on, Tim?
Jeff Caffey is here.
Oh, okay.
We'll see if we're going to get anybody else today. Now that,
Yeah.
Oh, there's Larry. Because we're preparing for the possibility of a tropical storm here.
Where's that?
Oh, don't say that. Bite your tongue and foot.
I know, but I just saw the weather, the updated projection, and we're going to get some wind and rain. How much depends on how close it gets to us.
We all have to go back to New Jersey. It's good there, right, Lara?
Okay, Tim, quickly.
Yes.
Where is the storm path projected for?
It's projected for Georgia. It's going to stay, they think, even if it stays where it's at now, this storm's been very unpredictable, it's going to stay mostly out to sea and will be on the weaker side. They said we'll probably get some pretty, heavy rain. But winds probably would only be like in the 20 to 30 mile an hour gust range, not much higher than that. But they did caution. They said it still could wobble back the other way. And then the conditions would be a little more severe. And they're thinking this would be like Sunday afternoon into Sunday night.
It looks like what I just saw on television was, it looks like it's going to be off the coast of South Carolina, but it may hit Wilmington, North Carolina again.
Right.
Apparently Wilmington kind of sticks out enough that even if it's not far offshore. But,
That's the one good thing. The good thing about Georgia is that, we have that little indent, we're
Yeah.
kind of indented here, and then it kind of stays that way in South Carolina, Charleston, and then it starts to veer out again. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping it'll be minimal. I really don't want a big storm.
You're a history professor,
No,
but you
on top
remember
of-
how the history,
On top of having on top of having a pandemic, we don't need a hurricane.
Oh, I agree. I don't want one, trust me.
you're an English or history professor, I remember, but you remember that the trade winds, in order to get, one of the fears was when they were going back to Europe, if they wanted to get on what Columbus had called that river of the sea, which took them up, they didn't want to go as far as North Carolina. They wanted to get south of North Carolina. And that's why Beaufort became an important point at which to make that turn to start heading into the trade winds, which would take them back to Europe.
Right.
So that if they went too far north, they were afraid they'd hit hurricanes and things like that off of Cape Hatteras and Ocracoke and Kill Devil's Island and all of those places off the coast of North Carolina.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I've just been kind of paying attention. I can't stand the TV. They whip you up into too much of a frenzy when it's not going to be anything. There's a guy who lives here in Savannah, and he's a background in research and meteorology. And his little company is called Enki, E-N-K-I Research. And he posts stuff after they do a new update. And he doesn't get, everybody all into a panic. He says, these are just the facts. This is what we know. This is what I think is going to happen. Don't get yourself all worried. It's not going to be that big of a deal. And he's the only person I listen to when it comes to this stuff anymore. I won't even put television on.
I think we're so indented in that it should pass us, but we're gonna get a lot of rain and wind. I propose we'll know more on Sunday night, Monday.
Yeah, that's what they
My
said.
internet connection's unstable. Oh, okay.
What's wrong?
We're getting some rain up here in New Jersey, and it's probably will come up the coast here eventually. But
yeah, they said it. Interestingly enough, they said it could hit Nova Scotia of all places.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Up in the Maritimes in Canada,
Yeah.
That's pretty. Yeah, it's going pretty much up north.
Yeah, following the East Coast, heading that way. Yeah.
Now somebody just came on, but I don't see them.
No, he's not on camera yet. Maybe he will be later. But then we lost Jeff.
Okay.
They're probably eating lunch.
Then we lost Steve now. I don't know.
Now it is just now it looks like just the three of us.
It's the three of us.
Am I right?
Yep, and I'm giving him one more minute, then I'm gonna get going.
Yeah, because I have 104.
Yeah, I do too. That's what I have right now.
Why does it say live recording on mine? It shouldn't be recording it.
Oh, they record everything. Everything that all the classes, everything, the rabbi, my classes, everything gets recorded.
No, it says live YouTube recorded.
It's also on YouTube. Yep.
Oh, here comes Larry's wife.
Yep, how are you?
Good, how are
How
you?
are you, honey? How are you?
Larry's wife
sweetheart?
is named Jane, Jane.
Her name is Jane?
Yep.
Just in case.
Oh, it always was Jane, no?
It's always with Jane, but if you don't want to
Almost Nancy.
you don't want to call her Larry's wife, you can call her Jane.
I'm so glad you reminded me of that.
It used to be Diana Ross, but she changed it.
It's
Oh, we
better to
know
be
everyone's
called
here.
Jane. It's better to be called Jane. It's too bad Larry isn't Tarzan.
I know, but
Oh,
he
well.
is.
How do you know I'm not Tarzan?
But he is.
I might be Tarzan.
In your own way.
That's right. There you go. All right.
Leave it to me. Well, listen, if we can't laugh, we can't talk.
That's right. In the world we're living in right now, levity is a good thing because we could all use a bit more
Yes.
levity right now. That's
And we'll have fun
oh, Tammy, you're
today.
Stable.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Maybe we'll get some people join us along the way. So I'm putting everybody on mute for now. And then if you have a question, or we can discuss afterwards. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with the words of Torah. So this week, as we continue a little further into the book of Deuteronomy, this week's portion is called Vayet Chanan. I just kind of like saying that. I don't know why. Vayet Chanan.
Can you say that again?
Vayet Chanan.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, so here we go. So Moses is carrying on with his grand oration. Remember, this book is primarily an extended speech. Some people call it a homily. I've seen it called a sermon, an oration, whatever you want to call it. But this is, he's talking directly to the people. This is in first person as he is speaking to them just as they are poised to enter the promised land. Because remember, once again, Moses cannot enter the promised land, and that is by God's decree. So his recounting of the history of everything they've been through is meant to remind the people, and the one thing that Moses continually does throughout Deuteronomy is to remind them of their covenant with God, that he was with them in their many struggles as they wandered for the last 40 years through the desert. We also have in this particular Torah portion a recounting of the Decalogue, or the 10 Commandments, and we have a recitation of the Shema, affirming the oneness of God, our belief in monotheism. Moses reminds the Israelites that they must show their love for Adonai, and that one chief way that the people can do this is to follow and to obey God's commandments, his ordinances, his laws. He also warns them to be very careful not to be taken in by idol worship of the tribes and the peoples that they will conquer. And that's one thing that is reiterated again and again. Interestingly enough, this portion, though, opens with Moses pleading with God to be allowed to enter the promised land. He says, please, please, haven't I proven myself? Can't I go in? But in spite of Moses's kind of obsequious plea to the great and mighty God, Moses is turned down flat. I mean, God doesn't even take a minute to think about it. He actually says to Moses in chapter 3 of Deuteronomy, verses 26 to 28, he says, enough, never speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the summit of Pisgah and gaze about to the west, the north, the south, and the east. Look at it well, for you shall not go across yonder Jordan. End of discussion. So God has made it abundantly clear, no, he's not going to change his mind. One of the key elements that this portion focuses on, as I said, is the belief in monotheism. The one God, the true God, the only God, and no other. We as Jews have accepted the Shema as the watchword of our faith. Some people would call it our creed, if you like that term. And really, when you look at especially Reform Judaism, it's really the only sort of dogmatic thing that we have, because we're not a dogmatic religion. It's just something we don't question. It's our truth with a capital T. We do not really argue about it. We don't really discuss it, as we do with so many other elements in our Torah and in our Jewish faith. We claim a kinship in this oneness of God with the other Abrahamic faiths, Christianity and Islam. We all profess a belief in what has come to be called ethical monotheism. However, Rabbi Reuven Fierstein, a professor of medieval Judaism and Islam at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in Los Angeles, in a recent modern commentary on this Torah portion, believes that perhaps we should think about this notion of monotheism and truth with a capital T, a little more deeply. Rabbi Fierstein believes that in the early years of our sort of coalescing as a people, many of the Israelites, while worshiping the one God, also continued to worship and make offerings to a host of tribal gods. He cites evidence for this in the Tanakh, He says, if you look at the second book of Kings and you look at some of the words in the book of the prophet Zechariah, you will see that there are admonishments to stop giving offerings to other gods. He also hypothesizes that the continual calling out of idolatry and polytheism in both the Torah and in the Tanakh was an effort to try to deter the practice from continuing on. In our portion this week, it clearly states that offerings to any other deity other than the one God who created the universe and humankind, they are described clearly here as abominations, and the other deities are described as demons and no gods at all. Rabbi Firestein goes on to suggest that prior to monotheism, religion was more broad-minded. It was more flexible regarding any notion of truth. After monotheism, religion had a tendency to become rather intolerant of any idea other than the one exclusive truth, and here again with a capital T. So much so that armies fought and died over this capital T truth. He questions why the three monotheistic faiths have each had a different form of revelation, ideas that clearly contradict one another. He cites as examples of this in the Trinity in Christianity. In other words, is it three or is it one? He cites the differences between which day is really the Sabbath day to keep holy. Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? Or is it Sunday? And as to our future hopefulness, will a Messiah come to redeem us? Or did a Messiah already come? Or will this Messiah ever return? Or are we as humans responsible for ushering in our own messianic age? In continuation, he goes on to state, each community of faith has a scripture that favors its particular view as truth. Wars have been fought over these nations, and people have suffered and died defending them. Are we all right? Is one right and the other's wrong? Who embodies the truth with a capital T? Or are there multiple truths? As Jews, we grapple with a whole wide variety of issues, and we really must grapple with the idea of truth as well. Reform Judaism teaches us that there are many paths to God and that we are only one of many. If people lead an ethical life, then that's really all that can be expected of them. And that really does seem to work. After all, we as Jews, we do not proselytize. And still, if ours is the truth, capital T, of the one God in Adonai, wouldn't we want others to join us in understanding and accepting this truth? And if the Christian Messiah embodied in Jesus as divine and as God is a truth for those who profess belief in Christianity, can they also be right in their truth, even if their truth does not match ours? And if Muhammad is the final prophet and messenger of God, and all should heed his words and strive to live life as he did, is that still one more truth to those that practice Islam? If all of these are true, then it would seem to suggest that there is not, nor can there be, one overarching truth. And yet we are supposed to believe in the one truth of the one God. These are challenging questions. Our Jewish tradition struggles with this issue. And perhaps we are not necessarily meant to figure it out or to know the answer. Rabbi Firestein believes that it is important for us to grapple with the notion of monotheism and the notion of one God and the one truth, but we need not ever expect to have it all figured out. Because we are not a religion of dogma, nor a religion that has a mortal authority clarifying for us what to believe or what to accept as truth, as in a pope, it is 100% acceptable for us to live in the tension of not knowing. The very acts of studying and learning and discussing matters of God and truth are spiritual exercises. The matters of the oneness and the unity of God may well be beyond human comprehension. We may not be capable of completely understanding the complexities of this oneness, and that's perfectly acceptable. Rabbi Dan Moskowitz, a student who actually studied under Rabbi Firestein, sums it up this way. Some truths are beyond our understanding. Some answers will always elude us, but we are duty-bound as Jews to pursue them, even if we are, as the book of Ecclesiastes states in chapter 1, verse 14, striving after wind. So there you go. Monotheism.
What does it mean, capital T for truth?
Capital T for truth would be the truth, the one truth. So for example, Jews may think that when we recite the Shema as the watchword of our faith, that is the capital T truth. That's who it is, that's what it is, that's what we believe, and that's the end of it.
I see. So anytime it's a capital T, that means it's meant to be, that's what it is.
It's meant to be the truth, not just truth, the truth. The one that as Jews, we are supposed to accept, to believe in. But if that is the truth, but then you look at, as I said, the other Abrahamic faiths, you look at Islam, you look at Christianity, their the truth with a capital T is not going to match our truth with a capital T.
But is that important?
Well, that's the question we're sort of discussing here is it important? Is it important that we have, is there really such thing as one capital T truth, or are there maybe many capital T truths based on whatever philosophy?
Yes, of course there's other truths, but not in our religion. We have only one truth. They have their truth. We're not challenged. We shouldn't be challenged to see which truth is the real truth, because their truth is their truth, and we have our truth based on our 10 commandments and our God. That's the only thing that I know that is the real truth, because their truth may be truth for them. This is my truth.
So then what we have to decide then, that it's okay for every different group of people who all claim they're monotheistic, who all profess to be monotheistic faiths. We can all have a different truth. We can all share the idea that we're monotheistic,
right?
But you can have your truth, I can have mine. So maybe there is no one capital T truth. Go ahead, Larry, go ahead. Unmute yourself. I got everybody. Got to unmute yourself.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say that, in Judaism, of course, as in
I can't hear Larry.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I just wanted to say that in Judaism, as in most religions, the country you live in determines what the truth really is. If you live in a democratic society, then you have a truth that is superseded by your religion, and the truth is basically the Supreme Court or whatever the Constitution of.
Larry's break.
Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just finish, Tammy. So what I'm saying is that as you depending on where you live, that becomes more of the truth. Now, if you live in a place like, for example, Saudi Arabia, where the religion is so intertwined with the nature of the civil laws, they are basically the same. So if you're living in a democracy, truth is different because you have to obey the truth of that democracy, which is the majority of the people. So it really doesn't matter that much for Jews, who most of them live in democracies, because you have to obey the laws, not that are in the Torah, so to speak, but you obey the laws of the land that you live in.
Right.
So it's almost immaterial is what I'm saying. As far as what the truth is. The truth is the law of the land, not the law of the Torah anymore.
So it doesn't really matter if we don't really, in other words, we don't really have to agree as different faith communities or different religious communities. We don't all have to agree that we have, because most religions, and I don't know how true this may be of people who are Jewish, most religions claim to have the truth. But unlike other religions, we don't go out and proselytize to others saying, we have the truth, so come join us, come follow us. If you want to join us and you want to follow us and be a part of us, we're good with that, but we don't go out seeking it like many other religions do, because we don't feel it's that important, because you have your truth, I have my truth. And maybe, like as the rabbi said in the commentary, maybe truth with a capital T is something that we just can't comprehend.
Well, what I'm trying to say is a little bit different though, because supposing you're a Catholic person or a Muslim and you're living in the United States along with a Jewish person, you may have a slightly different idea of what God is, but if you believe that truth is what you're being told to do, you know, your moral truth, that is dictated by the laws of the country.
Right.
So in the United States, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Muslim, whether you're atheist, whether you're Jewish, whatever religion you are, you all have the same, hopefully, overlying truth. You know, which are basically, some of them are in the 10 Commandments, some have been codified a little bit more. Don't steal, don't rob, don't murder, all of those kinds of things, you know. So basically, some of those things have been codified into justice. Truth and justice kind of take on the same kind of meaning. And it's, you know, your individual beliefs may be different because of your faith, you know, and you may say, well, God told me do this or this, but nonetheless, the bottom line is you got to obey the laws of the land, no matter what religion you are in a democratic society. If you're in a society that is, you know, totally dictated by religion, then, I mean, the truth is the religion.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, when you're talking about the truth, the capital truth, we're basically talking about it as our Bible, not necessarily the truth of the land. We're talking about the truth of our religion. What is the religion truth? And that, to whatever the Bible says, if we believe in our Bible and we believe in the 10 Commandments and our laws, that is our truth pertaining to our Jewish religion, not necessarily the laws of the Constitution of the United States or the laws of the country, but the laws of our religious laws. There's two different things here. One is our religious laws, and one is our laws that we live in the country. On the other hand, if you look at Orthodox Jews, they live by the Bible every day, but they also, without realizing, conform to, if they live in America, to American laws and traditions.
Well, I wouldn't say without realizing, because obviously they realize, because they are subject to the same laws of the community, you know, as we are, as unorthodox, as, you know, Reformed Jews or as Catholics
Correct.
or Protestants.
Correct.
So
I
they
was just
realize it, but they
trying-
may live in a more insular society in which they say they may go for advice on specific issues, you know.
I was just trying to compare the religious laws. Those are, we have religious laws that we try to abide by, but that is not, that might be a little bit different. Is it, Tim? Is it, then it must be different.
I was going to throw the question back. Are there points where religious law or religious truth are in conflict with governmental law or governmental truth?
Some of it is, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I think some of it has to be, because the laws of this country is not based on the Bible, on our scrolls, our command. I mean, some of the commandments obviously are, but not all of. Well, basically, a lot of the commandments are the laws of the country. Thou shalt not commit adultery, and all this other stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, Jane.
Well, they do conflict at times. For example, if you're very Orthodox,
Well, that's
the
what I was saying.
idea of having a autopsy is very, very strongly opposed a lot of times. But we've decided, if you're not very Orthodox, that is, that the law of the land would apply to that. But on the other hand, you have people that do not believe that way and will not accept that. You will also have people who
about
don't
people-
accept medicine.
What about
Right.
people with tattoos?
Pardon?
What about people who have tattoos?
Well, but that's not a law.
I don't think there's any law against having a tattoo or not having a tattoo. I mean,
Only religious law.
you know, that's.
But that's what I'm talking about, a religious law that would not necessarily be with a traditional American law where we live in America.
There's
That
no
wouldn't be-
American law about tattoos. You can have a
That's right.
tattoo.
Well, no, in our religion, when you give yourself a tattoo, you're desecrating your body.
But you're not disobeying any American laws. You're not disobeying any civil laws.
No,
Yeah,
not
we're-
American laws.
But we're
I
trying
said it,
to
you
look
do not.
for, we're looking for examples where laws of the land, laws of the whatever governmental society you're living under, conflict with the laws as stated in your religious beliefs.
Yeah, I think Jane gave a good one with the
Right.
autopsy.
Right, because I know that Orthodox,
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have made dispensations at times for certain where they'll go to the rabbis and say, please, and the rabbi, the Orthodox, will say, okay, I guess in this case we have to do it. But you're right. In most cases, if you are extremely Orthodox, they frown on that because it violates the body. The body is supposed to be buried intact because of the Orthodox belief that there will be a resurrection and the body needs to be resurrected intact. And so if there's been
What
an
about
autopsy, you can't do that.
cremation? What about cremation?
Well, again, I mean, Orthodox do not look at cremation as being an acceptable way to deal with the body once it's dead. Truly, Reform allows it. It's still not considered to be the most acceptable means, but we do allow it. Rabbis will do services, memorial services and such for someone who has been cremated. But I'm still looking at, I think Jane's example was a good one of one law for a religious purpose being somewhat in conflict with a governmental law that wants to perform an autopsy to learn whatever they need to know about if there was a crime or some kind of foul play was suspected, or even some kind of weird situation where the medical authorities may need to study something about the death. I don't know for a fact, back in the 60s and up to, I guess, 1970, when we were still under a military draft situation where if your number came up, you went to serve in the military. Did Orthodox Jews, and I don't know, did Orthodox Jews serve in the military under that system?
No,
Or,
in Israel,
well, I know in Israel. I'm talking about United States. In the
Okay.
United States.
We
well,
always
in
had- we
America,
always-
they don't let, they do not, in America, they do not allow, or an Orthodox Jew will not fight in the military.
Well, I think they always had the idea of conscientious objector in the
Right.
government service. As a matter of fact, they had that great film a couple of years ago about the fellow from, I think he was a Quaker or something, and he wanted to serve, he wanted to help the country, but he couldn't serve, he couldn't shoot a rifle in the movie, and they made him a medic, and he saved quite a few lives in Japan, rescuing American troops. So I think they always had the conscientious objector kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, because I was thinking, along with not just in terms of Judaism, but Amish, Quakers, other people who are primarily known for their religious philosophy being a very pacifist philosophy, applying then, I know you had to apply to get a conscientious objector status. And I guess if you were applying on grounds of religious philosophy, whatever, they probably would grant it rather than just saying, I'm a peace-loving kind of person, and I just don't want to go. Yes, Flossie.
We were in Israel a few years ago, and there was an issue about the Orthodox serving. And
Issue
they
right now.
do, well, I'm talking then when we were there, they do community service because there was, I remember a case of a young boy and the feeling he's not doing his part, but yet he did community service, and that's how they
Okay.
work for the country.
The title for it is National Service. There are a lot of Muslims, Arabs also in national service because they have the right not to take up arms universally. Now, you can be a Muslim and request the defense force. I think when we were there a year ago, there were 2 or 3 in the IDF, which were bearing arms, and they were Arab. But the number is generally between 1 and 3 every time we've been there. But you can do national service in, like we would have the equivalent of conscientious objector.
Well, I know that one of the issues that has been in Israeli elections has been there are those who say that it's time for the Orthodox young men and women, I guess, who are living in Israel to step up and do their service because so many of them do not. And I know that's had been a debatable issue in some of the recent elections in Israel.
Right now, they're having a problem thinking about what's going to happen if they have a vaccine for the pandemic,
Right.
because there are certain people that will not take a vaccine. Now, the public school, I know we've had a lot of problems, and it's very hard sometimes to get these people to conform, you know, even though it's for the good of everybody else, you know, if they don't believe it.
Right. Well, I know there's a rather vocal anti-vaxxer, anti-vaccine sort of crowd. I don't know truly how many in numbers they really are.
You only need
And
one.
you know, they make a lot of, they're vocal. They make a lot of noise. I know
But I
that.
don't think there's a federal law
I
saying
thought
that you
we
have to
weren't
be
talking about
Excuse me
this.
1 second, Tammy. Just let me finish. I don't think there's a federal law right now that that says that you must be vaccinated.
Yeah,
So I
there
think
is
that's the
in some-
conflict
oh,
here,
not
that
federal.
if they were to have a federal law or even a state law in the state that you were in, and the people decide, no, I'm not going to be vaccinated, and maybe the coronavirus will be one of those tipping points in which they'll say you have to have that. You know, it may be that, you know, that may reach an impasse and may have to go to the courts.
Right. Well, I mean, I suppose too, you know, you can look at as religious laws that govern your sense of morality. If something that the state, you know, the government is asking you to do violates your sense of morality. And you know, we are in this country, we are lucky because we have the ability to speak up and speak our mind, whether we agree with the country's direction or we don't, as we certainly have seen over recent months. But if you go back to something like Nazi Germany, you know, where, you know, the Nuremberg defense, I was only following orders. So if following orders from the top down means you have to put aside your sense of morality, you know, what does somebody do in a case where I'm being given an order from the top down, from the government, the authorities, but it violates my sense of morality? What do I do in that situation?
I'd like to just go back for a minute to the whole idea of monotheism. Well,
Right.
why is monotheism important? I mean, I could imagine that maybe I don't know what was in Abraham's mind or in his heart or things like that when he came up with the idea. But you know, the idea of you know, worshiping one God compared to all of the idols, maybe that was a unification kind of a strategy where people would stop fighting. But going back to the rabbi that you talked about now, monotheism hasn't really solved that particular problem. As a matter of fact, even within the Jewish tradition or any tradition, you know, the Protestant traditions, there are so many different, especially the Muslim tradition versus the Shiites and the Sunnis, you know, who came out of the same tradition. They're basically, you know, fighting against each other. So, you know, I don't know. What do you think was in Abraham's mind at the time with,
Well, I was thinking, if you go and you think about, you know, Abraham dedicating the idea of monotheistic, one God, that's it. We're not going to have a pantheon of gods, a God of the air, the water, the sea, whatever. Could have been there was the ability, God was creating a new society, if you will. That's not really the word I want, but for lack of a better word. And there had to be, perhaps, as you said, some sort of unifying factor or some sort of something to separate this new group of people from the other tribes, the other peoples around them. And one of those things was going to be, you are going to profess a belief in one God, only one God, no other accessory kind of gods. All devotion, all worship, all offerings will go to the one God, no other gods. And yet, as I said, from what this Rabbi Firestein was quoting in his, and I looked it up, when he said, if you look at the second book of Kings in the Tanakh, and you look at Zechariah, you can find evidence where the authorities are angry and railing at the people for still making offerings to other gods, other deities, even though this is further in the history when, you know, we're all supposed to be now monotheistic and we're all supposed to be under one God. The purpose of it, is it better to be monotheistic versus polytheistic? I don't know that that's necessarily true.
yeah, the Hindus have 129,000 gods.
Right. and live very, very ethically and very, very, I mean, I have friends that are Hindus and, have, a very ethical sort of life. So does it make anybody better to say it's, so we've got Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, we're all saying one God. Does that make it any better than Hinduism that does still have a whole bevy of gods?
Christianity is interesting. We were in Hawaii many years ago, and we were on the beach at Waikiki on a Sunday morning. And they have a church service that comes in on Sunday morning where they have the hula dancers come in, and then they have the priests that are following the hula dancers and things like this. And it's a combination of different rituals that they've had, embodied over the years in order for the Catholic Church to not totally do away with all of the rituals of the Hawaiians, but incorporate some of those rituals into the services there. And I think this was very prominent in a lot of the South American cultures where they came from. They didn't want to destroy them and things like that. So there's always been this sort of an accommodation that, okay, there's this one God, but if you want to believe in some other people, as well, that, we're not, if you want to at least join our part of the church, then, that's the overriding consideration.
Well, I know because Haiti, there's a very strong mixture of Catholicism and traditional Haitian components. I forgot the name of it. It's Catholic in terms of it follows the Catholic sacraments and such, but many of the rituals and some of the things they do are still holdovers from the folklore and folkways of the indigenous people to Haiti, but yet they've combined it into this sort of interesting sort of kind of Roman Catholicism.
Yes.
Yes, go
Judaism has this mixture of what you call mishigas, that also has a lot of, origins that maybe came out of traditions from a particular shtetl or things like that were
Right.
practiced, and, good luck charms if you did this or that,
Right.
and,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, the church has always been very flexible and good at that, and how to incorporate people. It was not just South America. I remember when I was down there, they were in the process of cleaning out the more flagrant saints, but they still incorporated quite a few of them into the religion. But it's not just also South America, it was also in Ireland. When Ireland was pagan, one of their main deities was incorporated and is still an Irish saint today. And so it's the way you look at it. Larry, we're doing a comparative religion book right now, and this professor had 680 million gods in Hinduism, but yet Hinduism considers itself monotheistic because there's one overriding God who is above them all. So they look at it very
Must be
differently.
a woman.
Oh, you're right in that respect, yeah.
Right. And Islam, I've been in lectures where the Islamic lecturer has a very difficult time understanding how Christianity considers itself a monotheistic religion, because
The Father, the Son, and the Holy
the
Spirit.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yes, right. I know. The old, is it one, is it three? And I will tell you that, if you talk to a Roman Catholic priest who's teaching dogmatically, just completely dogmatically from Roman Catholic dogma, he will tell you that it's both. He will say to you, look you in the face, and he will tell you that it's both. It's one and it's three. And you go back to basic math and you're thinking, well, it can't be 1 and 3, because if I have only one cookie, I have only one cookie. If I have 3 cookies, I always use food examples, I don't know why. I have 3 cookies, It can't be both. I can't have just one and can't have 3 at the same time, because then I have 4, and then where are we?
I always felt
That's what they will tell you. I have had this discussion, and they will tell you it's both. You just have to accept, and then they say you just have to accept it as a matter of faith.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see when we vote, Jane, you probably go through that. My turn. Were the Jews the first group or first religion where God really couldn't be seen compared to other gods that were statues or nature forces? I mean,
Um,
that's buying a whole thing about our God, but you can't see him. You could
Right.
see.
We don't give God shape, form. We certainly don't anthropomorphize God in Judaism. Up to that point, there usually were, well, look at the whole golden calf thing. They would build some sort of representation, statue, whatever, of the God. And that's what people, I guess, in their minds that envisioned that God to look like, or the form that that God would take. The idea that, I mean, it goes so far in Judaism, remember that we can't even really pronounce the name of God. Not only can we not see and visualize God, we can't even really pronounce God's name. Hence, why truly Orthodox people won't even write it. They'll put a dash between the G and the D, because you can't really, even in English, you shouldn't really write God's name. And if you do put that on a piece of paper, then you can't throw it away. You can't throw it in your normal trash. You have to burn it, because that would be the respectful way to get rid of it. Was Judaism the first, as far as I know, to accept this sort of idea of there's one God, but the God is not visible, and God's name, although in the ancient temple, the days of temple Judaism, I believe on Yom Kippur, it is said that the high priests, when they were conducting Yom Kippur services on that one day only and one time only, they would utter the name of God. But that was it. And then once the destruction of the temple, we just had Tish B'Av yesterday. And once that was gone and we became rabbinic Judaism, and we no longer had a temple and to worship in, then after that, the name was never ever said again. Now, how they said it, what they said, I wasn't there to hear it. I don't know. But we have this history of there being a God that we can't see, we can't give form to, and that we can't even really pronounce God's name. So we use other words to represent aspects of God, the different characteristics of God, but they're not really God, or we say Lord or something. And when you think about it, throwing when Abraham was throwing his lot behind this idea of, okay, there's going to be one God, but I can't see it. I can't give it form. I can't give it shape. That's a pretty big leap to take.
I was going to say, that's a whole package to have to buy. Yeah.
Right. Yes, Larry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, go back for a second now to the Moses. Pardon me. We were in Jordan. We stood on the site supposedly where Moses overlooked Israel. It was told he can't go in. What's your take on it? I mean, to us, it just seems like, to many people, it seems like an injustice. And I've heard different versions of, why, he touched the rock, he spoke to the rock, or, all of those kind of things. He disobeyed God, none of which are totally satisfying. But what do you think about that story?
Well, the one thing that actually, interestingly enough, when I was doing, I look at different commentaries. One of the things that I read said it wasn't so much about Moses striking the rock, even though that wasn't what God told him to do. He did it. Okay, so that was a bit of a indiscretion, if you want to call it that. But the thing that really angered God the most was not that. It was that then, the way it is written in the Torah, and I went back to look it up, it looks as if Moses and Aaron take credit for this bringing forth of the water from the rock. And that's what really angered God the most, when you are taking credit. This is a miraculous, you're getting water from a rock. That's pretty miraculous. And that God, I guess, felt somewhat slighted, maybe somewhat cheated, which you think you're God, why should you feel slighted and cheated? But that Moses and Aaron tried to step up and take credit for it. And that was really where the wrath of God came from. Now, again, this is one person's commentary that I happened to come across.
Yeah. The other,
but even that doesn't really satisfy me.
No,
But
it doesn't. Yeah, it kind of shows, well, God's a pretty vain kind of guy, you know, that he's not willing to share credit, or I gave you the ability to think for yourself. And, you know, so you took, you know, you're following me anyway. You know, and it just it doesn't satisfy me, the answer.
No, it doesn't mean. I feel bad. I've always, at nothing I've read, no kind of commentary I've ever read, changes my mind on the fact that I really feel for Moses after all of this, that he does not have at least just a short period of time to go in with the people that he's been leading and dealing with their, you know, all their stuff for all this time, that he hasn't get even one opportunity to go into the promised land and see it for himself. I feel it doesn't strike me as being fair in any way.
Yeah, some commentaries I had read kind of allude to the fact that God felt there had to be new leadership. This was a younger crowd now, and we need new people to take us into this new place. That you know, Moses, you're getting old. You're getting beyond the years when we think you're fit for the job, so to speak. And you know, that's part of it's still not a satisfying rationale, but nonetheless, that was part of it. Now, it also, you got to remember, whoever wrote that. You know, Deuteronomy is a strange book, right?
Right.
Because it takes like bits and pieces out of it's like Cliff Notes sort of.
The Cliff Notes of the Torah, basically.
Yeah, the Torah. So we don't really know much about who wrote the Deuteronomy, and maybe it was written by some priests as a compromise, and they said, yeah, it's time for new leadership here, and it's time to show that you know, maybe a leader doesn't go on forever here.
Except I still think that, okay, and I can understand that, you know, Moses probably certainly needs to retire and some new, you know, young blood needs to come up and take over. But I still think God could have at least allowed him before saying, okay, Moses, you're done, you're going to die now. You've done what I asked you to do, but at least given him at least a little bit of time to reap the rewards of all the work that he's done. So I still find myself siding on the side, or going with the side of, I feel bad for Moses, and I think God was a little bit petty here.
And I think it's a little cruel, the fact that he tells him to go up to the spot and to see the land, but you can't go in it.
Right.
It's
And
almost
he says,
like,
don't ever bring it up again. That's it.
yeah, I didn't realize
Maybe
that.
got to the point where Moses might have been,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
maybe it got to the point where Moses he felt he was getting too old, and that he would let younger people go in to the promised land, and he was just too old already. He had fought so long and so hard for so many years. It's not like you really believe that he was forbidden to go, or do you just decided that it's time that let somebody else carry the torch?
No, God was very, very adamant in that after the incident with the rock and the water, God was very adamant that you will get them to the border, but you will not go in. And here again, when Moses hopes that maybe over the passing time, God maybe had a change of heart or a change of mind, God reiterates in no uncertain terms. I mean, the words are very strong in the text of the Torah. No, enough, don't ever bring it up again. I mean, there's really no room.
Oh, he asked several times.
Yeah, God does not leave any wiggle room here on this one. I mean,
so he asked several times. Tim, he asked
God, he wanted God to rescind the punishment, and God would not do it. So Moses gets to stand and look at it, but he never gets to go in, set foot on it. Yes.
Did God ever rescind a judgment he made earlier where someone asked to change?
Well, yes, he did. Well, he would, because Moses, when, God, remember, there were times in the Torah where God was ready to just really do away with the Israelites, because he would, kind of throw up his hands and say, you're complaining again. But Moses would always go and plead the case of the people to God. And then God would back away and lessen the severity of the punishment frequently. So yes, there were times when, but it would always be Moses playing sort of a mediary between the people, and yes, they had done something wrong, or they had angered God for whatever reason, and God, who was also angry, Moses would try to smooth it over, and so God would then back off and do something, punish, but maybe in not such a severe way. But Moses doesn't have anybody that goes and intervenes for him and plays a mediator kind of role with God. It's just Moses and God says no, and don't talk about it again. Don't ever bring it up again. That's the end of it. Let's forget about it.
Yeah, it's almost ironic because, you know, God creates us supposedly with free will. So he creates us with the opportunity to think, to question, to disobey, to obey, and things like that. And yet when you do something that he doesn't like, or, you know, supposedly in this case, that angers him, then, you know, he says, well, you know, but you can go back and say, but look, you made me that way. You gave me the opportunity to argue, to, you know, you could almost go back and say, you know, I was created with all of those things that you put inside of me, you know, so what was really your intention of giving us this free will if you're not allowing us to use it?
Yeah, it's almost like God says, I really don't want to be a dictator because I want you to have the ability to do things on your own, think for yourself, make decisions, etc. But then becomes very dictatorial in his reaction when he's displeased about something, angry about something. So it's, yeah, it's kind of like wanting to have your cake and eat it too, I guess. I want to give you free will. I want to give you choices. You know, I want you to use what I've given you, the gifts I've given you. But then sometimes when you do and I'm not happy about it, then I step in like a sort of dictatorial ruler and say, okay, that's the way it's going to be, you know, and I'm not going to rescind my punishment. Certainly it's that way with Moses. I mean, he's very, very adamant and he's not going to change his mind. And there's nothing Moses can do about it.
How does the book of Deuteronomy end? I forget.
I don't remember either, but we're going to find out in a couple of weeks.
Where are we now in the book about how?
We are just in the second portion. We are in the second portion. So this is going to take us, you know, up through till we get to pretty much the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and all of that.
Another month.
Special Torah portions for the holy days.
6 weeks, 6 more portions.
Right, because Rosh Hashanah is September 19th, 18th, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, it continues to be, as you said, it's sort of a Cliff's Notes of the Torah. I mean, if you really want to know the key elements of the Torah and you don't have time to read the whole thing, you can sit down and read Deuteronomy and you pretty much get a sort of, you know, condensed version of all that has happened, all that's been done. The final portion, if I'm not mistaken, Moses, they say in the text, although, you know, how the text was translated is always iffy. They say in the text that Moses actually sings in the final portion.
That's unusual because he's dead already, right? As a matter of fact, after the first 4 books, he's dead. So how did he come back to write the 5th book, which is always right?
Stop it.
Well, I think the whole thing with Deuteronomy is they believe, the scholars believe, and again, that Deuteronomy was written later and put together later than the other books. So this book was kind of conceived as this is what Moses would have said and would have wanted to impart to the people prior to his death. And at the end, he composes this song that he sings to the people. I believe that's in the final book of Deuteronomy. And the song that he sings, if I'm remembering correctly, is again sort of a reiteration of all the principles espoused in the Torah up to that point. But because I remember I did a Devar Torah on this at one point, and the reason that Moses sings it to them is he's hoping they'll remember it more easily in song, because, and I use the example of when you're trying to teach children something, if you teach children in the version of something they can sing, just like their ABCs, they'll remember it more.
That's interesting.
So if he sings these things to the people, maybe they'll remember them more. I don't know.
Is this the first time that singing had been used as far as with teaching something to the people?
Well, I mean, we have you know, there's music and singing, but in a way of getting across to really stick an idea into people's heads. That, as far as I know, this is the only point in the Torah where that happens, and that was just my interpretation. Because having been a teacher, I know that if kids think about it, you can probably remember the lyrics to songs that were popular when you were in high school.
Right.
Well,
You know, somebody starts the tune and you can go along. Oh, I remember the words to this, and you can sing along with whatever song it was. I know I can. I can remember songs from the early and mid 60s, and I was a little kid, but I remember them. Put the song on. and I'll sing along with it. We remember things when there's a melody, when there's a, you know, and so if you want people to remember something, just like elementary school teachers, they want the students to remember something, they put it to a sing-songy kind of thing.
Well,
So I thought maybe
anytime,
that's what Moses was doing.
anytime you want to break into song, as you're teaching us, please feel
Oh,
free.
please, please, please. One time when I was leading services in Ohio, I don't know how this happened. Usually we had a rabbi and a cantor in that synagogue. And usually if one of the clergy was out and I was asked to help lead service, I would do the rabbi part and the rabbi would step in as cantor. Not that our rabbi had a great voice, but he would do that.
Better than you.
One week, for some reason, they had me do the cantorial part. They never asked again. They never asked again. It was pretty, I remember I was starting to lead, I think it was the Micha Mocha. And this was a Friday night service and I was leading, and oh, I got so far off tune. And we had our version of Kelly that we have at Mikveh Israel. It was a gentleman who played the organ for the cantor, and he was there. He stepped in and kind of got it back on track, because I don't know where I was, but I was not on the Mika Mocha somehow.
In
Yeah.
Deuteronomy, Tim, in Deuteronomy, does God say who is going to take Moses' place? When does Joshua come into the picture?
Joshua has already been appointed at this point to be the new leader. Yeah.
Oh, he's been appointed
Yes.
even
Yeah, he's
before?
already been appointed. So this is like Moses' last hurrah before really handing it all over to Joshua.
When did
Joshua's
he
already
appoint
been-
Joshua? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, so it was somewhere in Numbers where God makes it very clear that the reins of power are going to be handed over to Joshua.
It's
So
in Deuteronomy, then?
Joshua is at the ready. Joshua knows that this is going to become, his responsibility after Moses has this one last final, hurrah with the people. So, the sort of handing down of power is pretty much in place. There's not really going to be, any kind of squabble, because God's already kind of decreed and declared it. And Moses has made it
Does
clear.
Moses argue at that time with God?
No, there's no real argument. Moses understands that at some point he's going to have someone who can step in for him.
Oh, so he doesn't say exactly when Joshua is going to take over.
Only when he is done. But now that they've made it, to the promised land and he can't go in, it's pretty much time to hand the reins of power over to Joshua at this point.
Was Joshua born on the way when we left Egypt?
He was not born when they left Egypt, so he's one of the newer generation.
Okay, so, all right, but he was not in Egypt. He is completely.
no.
Okay.
Remember how young he looks in the movie? Jeez. They just needed to have a nice, good-looking actor for that.
As we get older, they look younger
They
and
all look
younger.
Oh my gosh, I know. I had a guy come and do an estimate for me today, and I'm like, "Are you even out of high school yet? Really?" Jeez. But so there you go. I mean, monotheism is something that we really don't discuss and debate. We just sort of accept. And yet, this whole thing that I read, I was really taken by this rabbi's commentary, because he said, we've always accepted this monotheistic idea, but maybe it's something we should discuss and think about. Like, is monotheism absolutely essentially necessary? I guess as Jews, yes, because we have the Shema, but I don't know that it's necessarily a better way or a superior way. It just happens to be the way that Judaism evolved. But I never stopped to really think about it before. It's just something that I kind of was like, okay, there's one God, we're monotheistic. All right, I'm okay with that. So it really got me thinking. I really did find this rabbi's commentary very interesting.
Larry,
Yes.
can I ask you a question? I made a note.
Oh, come on.
It's something about Judaism. I'm not just.
Oh, if it's about Judaism, then you got the right guy.
Thank you. What you would do.
I can answer any question about Judaism.
Yeah, thinks I'm just going, hi, kids. No.
Welcome, answer the free.
You may not like the answer, but
Oh, well.
Kim will help you here. You had quoted that who said, I wish I had the opportunity to choose being a Jew rather than being born a Jew. Who said that?
Brandeis.
yeah, this came up in the discussion when the rabbi the other day, Rabbi Haas, was talking to us about the Supreme Court justices. And I said that one of the things that, and I didn't remember the occasion, but I looked it up and then I sent it out to everybody. But Brandeis, while he was still at Harvard Law School, he was apparently always being kidded by his classmates that he was the most brilliant of the students there. And yet, because he was Jewish, they said, you're never going to be able to rise to, any position of high authority in the judicial system because you're Judaism. So at one speech that he gave before his fellow graduates, he said, I am sorry that I was born Jewish, because I would have liked to have had the opportunity to have been able to choose to be Jewish. And then he went on as to cite why choosing to be Jewish to him would have been more important than just being actually born into it and having to follow it. So that was the thing. But I did send out the link.
I'm finished.
I wrote the quote, but I didn't write who said it. So that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to know.
No, I
Okay.
sent everybody that was in our class the other day the link for
Okay.
that quote. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. All right, everybody, stay well, stay healthy, stay cool. Keep your eyes on, whatever is going to happen with this storm. Like I said, they are really feeling somewhat indecisive because it can wobble one way or the other. Hopefully it wobbles away, not closer. That's what we're hoping
I hope
for.
so.
So
Yeah. Okay. Stay safe.
stay safe. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Yeah.
shalom. Thanks again, Steve. Tim. Have a good
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah,
Everybody
you
have
too.
a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
our apologies. That was an internet failure here. I don't know what happened, but it took about 20 minutes to get it rebooted. And
happens.
I think our central system went down with Spectrum. So
Oh, okay. It happens. I mean, we're all, we depend on technology, love it when it works, get upset when it doesn't, because I had an issue with mine the other day too, and I spent a good amount of time trying to figure it out. And it can be very maddening sometimes.
Tim,
Yes.
do they have any more insight about the incident that happened, the anti-Semitic incident in Charleston?
Oh, what's this? I missed this somewhere.
I thought I had gotten on an email that there were anti-Semitic, what do you call, graffiti.
desecration of the Holocaust Memorial site in Charleston.
Oh, no, I haven't heard. You're right. I did see something about that, but I have heard nothing more. I've heard no follow-up on it at this point yet, whether they
I just wondered if we were putting extra security out or something, because evidently.
Well, we have a good relationship. Luckily, Savannah police have a good relationship with the Jewish community here. And if there's something for them to keep their eyes and ears open on, I'm sure they are. I'll have to ask on Monday, because Debbie, in the office is kind of the liaison with the police. And if there's something that they hear any buzz going on, they'll let her know, that they're keeping watch on something. So I'll have to ask her and see if, Barry, who is kind of our cop, who's the one that's really, with Mikveh Israel, if there's been anything that they've been listening to or any kind of chatter, because they're really good about keeping their ears and eyes open on all of
In
this.
Charleston, the synagogue, I forget its proper name, has gotten together with Mother Emanuel since with the incident that happened, and they're all looking to get together to do something as far as protecting. Larry, did you know that there was vandalism?
No, I didn't know at all. I'm going to go on the internet and search for it.
I saw it last night and just
No, I didn't see it at all. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
On a totally different subject, I did see that movie that you sent me about the lady on fire. Yeah. And I didn't remember it really well till I looked up a little bit about it. And yeah, it's, I'll talk to you about it privately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a slow, very slow moving.
Thank you.
Jeff was falling.
I wasn't falling asleep, but it's a real, I call it a real ladies movie.
I don't know if it's a ladies movie. It's interesting in that it's about, in my mind, it's about how to construct the portrait. And the person who's the portrait being constructed of has as much to do with it, because she has to transmit the information to the person painting the portrait. So that was an interesting part of the picture. But aside from that, I didn't get a heck of a lot out of it.
Oh, it's up for the Academy Award as
No,
well as some
no,
other.
no.
Golden Globe. Yeah, it was a Golden
Won an
Globe.
award in France.
It won the
Palme
France
d'Or.
Award.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a
And-
Golden Globe nominee, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's an
artsy picture. So I could see why Flossie liked it and you didn't.
No, I didn't love it. I wrote you, I said it wasn't, but I was surprised it was up. And what I read was, she was just
You're
out
tying
of,
Tim up.
Tim, you want to see the movie? She was just out of the convent. Did you know that? I didn't realize that.
She was
That's
there?
She had just come out of the convent.
Oh,
The painter or the?
Not
no,
the
right.
painter, you keep saying.
Yeah, she
it.
came out of the convent to get married. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah. And then she wants to have a portrait done, but for herself to show to her husband or potential
Right.
husband, right?
That's
Yeah.
how it all started.
Right.
Right,
Tim, we're talking about the movie Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
okay. I'll have to look it
A
up.
French movie, and you
Very,
know, like
very
there's-
high critical acclaim, but
Okay.
uh,
I'll
You're
look it up.
wondering why.
I felt it was really slow. It only took us 5 days to complete.
Another 2 days, you could have created the world.
I know.
Take care. Okay,
All
bye-bye.
right.
Watch
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Bye.